Signal 1, it is trying to be the one that gets under your skin through tension, theory, and the uncomfortable reality that humanity may not be emotionally equipped for the kind of contact it keeps fantasizing about. The setup is clean and effective. Isabelle Fuhrman plays Dr. Annika Kask, a brilliant young computer scientist who already carries the aura of someone the world sees as exceptional. She is recruited by a tech billionaire, played with folklore swagger by Dennis Quaid, to join a secretive project on a private Caribbean island. There, she is supposed to help oversee the work of Perry Glassner, a genius-level scientist played by David Thewlis, who has developed a device called Littlemuth to communicate with non-human intelligence. Right away, the movie understands that a concept like this does not just need technological stakes. It needs human instability. It needs ego. It needs grief. It needs conflicting motives. Otherwise, it is just people staring at screens and saying impressive words until the running time runs out. To its credit, Signal 1 actually knows that. What keeps the first half engaging is not just the mystery of whether communication will happen, because the film makes it clear early that something is out there. The real question is how different personalities react to that reality and what they want from it. Annika approaches the situation with caution, intelligence, and a sense of responsibility. Charlie, Josh Hutcherson's eager electronics prodigy, comes in with the kind of enthusiasm that makes him easier to like and easier to manipulate. Quaid's billionaire, Sam Houston, is the most dangerous kind of visionary, the one whose curiosity is fused with entitlement. He does not just want to understand the unknown. He wants access to it, control over it, ownership of the moment. And then there is Perry Glassner, played by Thewlis, like a man whose intellect has fermented into contempt. He is furious at humanity, disgusted by people, and so steeped in nihilism that every line he speaks feels sharpened to cut. Thewlis is a huge part of why the movie works as well as it does. His performance gives Signal 1 a pulse whenever the dialogue threatens to become too technical for its own good. Perry is the kind of character who could easily come off like a screenwriter's philosophy delivery system, but Thewlis gives him volatility and venom. He does not just sound smart. He sounds wounded, arrogant, exhausted, and just unstable enough to make every scene around him feel risky. When he talks about humanity as humiliating, cruel, self-destructive, and committed to wrecking its own habitat, the movie suddenly gains an edge that it needs. Because without that bitterness, Signal 1 could have drifted into polite sci-fi abstraction. Perry keeps pulling it back towards something harsher and more alive. That said, the movie absolutely has stretches where the dialogue becomes a black hole of its own. Jonathan Sobel clearly did the research, and the script wants me to know it. There are long passages of scientists discussing systems, theories, frequencies, impossible data, and speculative astrophysics while staring at buzzing screens. Sometimes that works because it builds process, and process matters in a movie about communication. But sometimes it starts to feel like the movie is more interested in sounding informed than sounding dramatic. This is the tightrope Signal 1 walks for almost its entire runtime. It wants to be serious about the science, serious about the moral weight of contact, and serious about the implications of what humanity does when faced with something greater than itself. I respect that. But seriousness alone is not momentum. There are scenes here where the film stops feeling like a story and starts feeling like a very polished thought experiment. Fortunately, Isabelle Fuhrman keeps it grounded. Annika is written with a familiar wound, the loss of her sister as a child, and yes, that kind of tragic backstory can feel a little too convenient in movies like this. It is clearly there to explain her focus, her emotional caution, and her sensitivity to fragility. In lesser hands, that would feel mechanical. Fuhrman mostly makes it work because she does not oversell the trauma. She plays Annika as someone who has built herself around intelligence and discipline, but who never fully escaped the emotional fracture underneath. That gives the character moral weight. She becomes the film's emotional and ethical center not because the script tells me she is, but because Fuhrman makes Annika feel like the only person in the room whose brilliance is still connected to empathy. In a movie about communication, that matters more than technical genius. Josh Hutcherson also gives the movie useful energy. Charlie is the kind of eager young tech mind who could easily become annoying, but Hutcherson keeps him light on his feet. He gives the character just enough boyish excitement to make him feel believable as someone genuinely thrilled by the possibility of first contact, while still allowing the audience to sense how easily someone like Sam Houston could exploit that excitement. One of the more interesting details in the story is that Sam sells a different version of the project to almost everyone. To Annika, it is about caution and oversight. To Charlie, it is about discovery and wonder. That detail says a lot about the movie's view of power. Signal 1 understands that before humanity can even begin to communicate with alien intelligence, it is already lying to itself and to each other. That is where the movie gets stronger thematically than it does narratively, because at its core, Signal 1 is less about aliens than it is about the limits of human communication. The extraterrestrial presence is real, but the film wisely avoids turning that into a giant reveal it cannot afford to pay off. Instead, it focuses on attempts, failures, misunderstandings, and the terrifying possibility that even when something is trying to speak to us, we may not be mature enough to listen without poisoning the exchange. That is a compelling idea, and the film keeps returning to it in different ways. Through Perry's hatred of humanity, through Sam's arrogance, through Annika's grief, through Charlie's optimism, through the very design of the communication experiments, which become a series of trial and error steps that are sometimes suspenseful, sometimes repetitive, but almost always rooted in the same question. What if the biggest obstacle to first contact is not distance, but us? That is a strong science fiction question. The problem is that Signal 1 never fully turns that question into a truly unforgettable dramatic payoff. The visual effects are impressive considering the scale of the production, especially when the film introduces larger cosmic anomalies and hints that human recklessness may be inviting something closer than it should. The movie finds clever ways to avoid overexposing what it cannot render convincingly, and that restraint helps. Sobel makes a smart decision not to chase spectacle he cannot control. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments. This is where these kinds of films come to life. Until the next story, stay curious, be critical, keep your eyes on the screen. And remember, every film you haven't seen is a new film.